This is the brand I use for the liquids that go with dip nail polish. You can use any brand of powder with any brand of liquids. I use a lot of powders from Revel Nail. The key to know is that every brand has a liquid that you dip with and a liquid that you activate with. In some brands, the liquid that you dip with there's also another liquid that you use last as your top coat. But with this brand, it's the same liquid that you both dip your powder with and use as your top coat. In every brand, they're actually the same liquids, just some brands sell them as a separate bottle. That's why I like this brand, because there's one less thing to do. This brand also has a primer that I really like just to help prep your nails. I recommend watching a video that talks about how to push back your cuticles and prep your nails. For dip polish, you really don't need a lot of filing, but you do need to make sure that you've removed any cuticle around the base of the nail, because that will make your dip polish lift. I start by using some 100% pure acetone to prep my nails. This is also what you'll use to soak off dip nails. The best way to soak off dip nails that I have found is the heat and soak method. So look up some YouTube videos about using heat to soak off dip nails. You basically wrap the nails up in cotton that has the acetone on it, and then you put your hands in either a bowl of warm water or rice. The heat is what activates the acetone, so it soaks off the gel powder really quick, or the dip powder really quickly. It has to be this pure acetone. It can't even be what you will sometimes see labeled as just acetone nail polish remover. You want to look at it and see that the ingredients are just acetone. Otherwise, it will not take it off and you'll be frustrated. I start with just taking a little bit of that and rubbing it over each nail to remove any oils, natural oils that are on my skin. The oil is what's going to get in the way of your dip adhering cleanly. Next, after you've used your acetone to prep the nails, I like to use the nail prep from Quick Dip. And you literally just brush it on and it dries almost instantly to prep the nail. Your next step is to take your dipping liquid. Again, in this brand, it's step 2. But in some brands, it'll be called step 1. You're basically looking for whichever step in their process they say that you dip into your powder with. So I am using this powder. You want to shake it up a little bit so the powder's fluffy in there. And then you want to get a nice, not too thin, not too thick, stay on the thinner side coat of acetone. And for your first coat, don't go right up to the edges. I'm leaving just like a little hairline around the sides and bottom. And then you dip your nail. It's hard to see, sorry. Dip your nail and tap off any excess. So you'll see I've got like a semi-decent coat and there's some around on the skin. That's fine, don't worry about it. In between, you want to let this dry for about a minute. I would normally go ahead and do all 10 fingers. I would wait about 1 minute. And then I would I have a soft toothbrush that I just lightly dust off any extra powder on the nail. This is just a nice soft, and I'm not pushing very hard. You shouldn't see anything coming off but the excess. And it's fine that there's some little edges that aren't covered yet, because we're going to put 3 coats of this on. So we'll get more and more coverage as we go. The reason you want to brush off between every coat is it's going to make your filing at the end a lot easier. That's also the same reason we're not going all the way to the edges. So I'm just going to repeat. So this time I'm just going to go a little more closely to the edge and the bottom. And you can see I'm going nice and slow, making sure I get all the way, but not on the skin. Getting, again, on the skin or on the cuticle is what's going to mean that your dip lifts more quickly. A lot of people just shove their nail straight down in there. I don't like to do that. I find it gets it chunky. I like to turn my nail over and kind of roll it. And then I just tap off any excess back into the container. That is particularly helpful when you are using glittery shades that tend to be chunky. When they're glittery, I also go back with my finger and kind of press them down very lightly to make sure the pieces of glitter are flat and not sticking up. Okay, so I did 3 coats of painting on the clear and then dipping into the powder and then brushing off. And you'll see by the time I did 3 coats, I got kind of all the way to the edge, but not on the skin. And because I brushed off with my soft toothbrush between coats, my powder is not super chunky or thick, so I'm not gonna have to do a lot of filing. The thing you gotta know about these two, whatever the product is in your system you're using that says is what you're gonna dip into your color with. If you get powder into this product, this will get thick really fast and be hard to brush on and use. So that's the other reason that brushing off in between with the toothbrush is really important, because it keeps you from picking up this off your nail and putting it back into the powder. That's super important. So these two together, even though you're dipping them, are not friends when they get mixed into each other. So that's one really important tip. Okay, so I have done 3 coats of powder, and now I am ready to activate. Remember, this is like 2-part epoxy like you buy at the hardware store that you mix together, and then it becomes glue, right? So when you're doing that 2-part epoxy, something has to activate this step. So we've done this and dipped it, and now what we're going to do is activate. So step 3. The other thing you got to remember that's a tip is anytime these touch each other, the formula gets hard. So if I dipped this brush into this bottle, I would have a brush that looked like it was made out of hard plastic all of a sudden, because they activate and that chemical reaction causes them both to harden. So you never want these two, when they're wet, to touch each other other than on your nail. So now that my 3 coats are on, I'm going to activate those 3 coats by taking my activator step and just brushing it on. And it's fine, because I brushed off all the loose powder, for me to re-dip at this stage. And I'm going to wait about a minute and let that activate. I'll be right back with you. Okay, my activator has dried. This is my first application of activator. So what this one is doing is, again, activating all those layers of this step that I dipped with. So now they're hard, but see how they're still like kind of matte and bumpy looking. So now is the time when I'm going to smooth out and file my nail. I like to have a coarse file that I can use for any, like right there, I have a little bump that's super uneven with the rest of the nail. So I'm going to file that out until it's smooth. You don't need to work really hard. Your goal is to make them feel smooth, that you can't feel with your fingertips any bumps on there. Then I have a couple of medium files, a medium 180 that's a little rougher, and then a medium 220, 320 that's a little softer. I use the 180 to go around the cuticle line and smooth out, make sure that tapers really nicely and that there's no bumpy areas. And that's kind of hard to see. And I just kind of do it by feel, like if I feel that there's some texture. And it'll look, see how it looks kind of white when I start filing? That's okay. Just know that that's going to look shiny by the time we're done. So go through and then use, after you've used your medium file that's a little coarser, you're going to use your softest files to just smooth out the top. I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like before the next step. Okay, so I've filed my nail. You can see it looks pretty even in color, and it doesn't look as bumpy as it did before. It just looks a little chalky. That's fine. At this point, you can rinse your nail at the sink. Just don't use soap. Rinsing it will just take all of that like chalkiness off, or you can just use a paper towel like I just did. So the last step is applying our top coat. Now this is different than regular nail polish top coat because we're going to use these two products together to make that shiny look to our polish. And again, we're going to combine the two, but we're not going to touch the two together. So now that I've spent time filing, I've used up all that activator I used the first time before filing that helped set what was on my nail. So I need to apply another layer of this. And this is going to work to dry our top coat from underneath when we apply it. Like I said before, in this system, the liquid I dip with is the same as the top coat. It actually, again, is in all systems. They just sometimes bottle it separately. But I'm going to put my activator on. And I like to let this brand of activator dry for exactly 3 minutes. Then I'm going to apply this in a very specific way as my top coat. I'll come back in exactly 3 minutes and show you how to apply the top coat. Any sooner and you risk your brush getting chunky. Any longer and you risk your top coat not drying. That's why that 3 minute time frame works really, really well for me. Be right back. Okay, so the gel activator has been on my nail drying for about 3 minutes. Again, I really don't want this step to touch that while it's wet at all. So I'm going to take a piece of paper towel and wipe my nail really well. I'm going right around the edges. And then I'm going to set that paper towel way far away so I don't risk contaminating this step. Then I'm going to get a separate piece of paper towel that's clean and set it right down under my nail. And we're going to apply this twice to get our shiny top coat. The first time we apply it, not too thick, not too thin, you want to work quickly because we're basically sealing that activator. You want to do a stripe down the middle, a stripe on each side. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect because we're going to come back and do another coat. You're going to feel a little bit of heat on your nail when you do this step. And you're going to see that it's not super shiny. Before I put my brush back in my bottle, I'm going to wipe it on this clean paper towel and then put it back in my bottle. I would go through and do all 10 nails, and then I would wait 1 minute between coats. So I'm going to come back in 1 minute and show you how to do the very last step in this process. Okay, it's been drying for 1 minute. Still feels a little warm on my nail. And you'll see it's shiny, but not super shiny. You can still see like a little bit of matte or gritty texture. So we take one more coat of this, and I'm wiping off the brush, not too thick, not too thin. And I want to put a nice, perfect coat. This time I can take my time and pay a little more attention. Make sure I go right to the edges. Not on the skin. Make sure you rub the brush right along the tip of your nail, all the edges, because this will really help make sure that it seals and stays on. And then again, I'm going to always wipe my brush before I put it back in the bottle. And when I'm doing all 10 nails, I do a coat, wipe my brush, dip again. Do a coat, wipe my brush, dip again. Do a coat, wipe my brush. So always, always, always at this final step, because there's activator on our nails, you want to wipe your brush off. Don't pull on the brush with the paper towel. Just wipe it on the paper towel, and that keeps you from contaminating your liquids, because if you contaminate, this will get thick and sticky and unusable. I hope that helps, and I'd love to see how it works if you decide to try it. Have your mom send me any questions you have. Bye-bye.